will be an 18-month loan for people who have had a loss in income of 25% or more. And it really reflects the nature of the fact that the types of people who are struggling with their mortgages, that's changed. It's changed from poorly written loans to people who've lost their jobs because of the economy.
Do you feel that people who've lost their jobs should be able to stay in their house?
Well, I think one of the challenges is that it just takes much longer to find a new job. I mean, we're stuck in, the struggles and the recovery from this massive recession that you referenced has taken so long that people don't find a new job in 3 months or even 6 months.
Well, I think part of the problem is we're not getting empathy from the banks as well. You'd think that because we're going through a horrible recession, probably the worst we've seen in 75 years, you'd think when you'd go to the bank that they'd be understanding and they'd want to work with you, especially after we bail them out. And we're not getting that. I want to go to Mr. Jorge Ortiz. Jorge, could you tell us your story, please?
Yes. My family and I, we purchased a home in Rogers Park about 2 years ago for the purpose of establishing a community house, free daycare center, free after-school programs, and a community meeting space where we could talk about community issues, right? So we've been working on this project with dozens of organizations and ready to open our doors. We've actually already opened our doors. We were actually victims of the subprime loan scam. Our interest rates started shooting up. Mortgage payments went up over $3,000. Like you said in our introduction, we reflect a lot of the problems that a lot of people are facing, right? Not only that, we hired a mortgage firm, financial company, to help us with the modification. They charge us $3,000 for a modification.
Okay, I'm going to stop you real quick. Were they helping you with the HAMP modification, the government modification, or are they helping you with another bank-assisted modification?
They assisted us with the HAMP.
Okay, because just so everyone knows, the HAMP program is free. You should never be paying anyone for HAMP. And I know at NHS you deal with this a lot, where people come in and they've almost, for lack of better words, they've been scammed.
That is the right word.
It's a scam because this program was set up for people who clearly don't have the extra money. Well, why don't you talk about it?
Right. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase in this lately. And it's the challenge is that people who are desperate, people who are running these kind of loan scams that we're talked about, are very vulnerable. So they'll get a mailer or they'll get direct dial. A lot of the information, if you go into foreclosure, is publicly available, those records. And they'll say, I can do the government program for you, or I can get you a modification. I think there's a couple signs. If somebody guarantees you that they can get a loan modification, that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign.
If somebody says, just make your mortgage payment to me and I'll work with your bank, that's a bad sign. The things that don't feel right, if it sounds too good to be true, if they can guarantee you that, that's something to avoid. You need to be aware of loan scams in this environment.
Okay. So back to Jorge. So your payments jumped by about $3,000.
Over $3,000.
And then on top of that, you paid someone to assist you with getting onto the HAMP program.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. We were scammed essentially.
Okay.
And they did not manage to get us a modification, and we're fighting a foreclosure eviction.
Okay.
The bank is not responding. We're going to court, and right now we're waiting for the final decision by the judge whether we get to keep the house and negotiate with the bank, or whether the bank keeps the house.
Okay, so it has reached the foreclosure where you've been served the notice papers.
Yes, we've reached the absolute final.
Okay, so
court.
it's reached the final stage.
Yes.
Are you employed right now? So are you able to make payments if you're able to get into a modification program?
They've denied us. My name isn't in the loan, right?
Okay.
But yes, we are employed. The person whose loan is employed, but they still denied us.
Okay, so you're employed, you can make payments, you just can't make the balloon payments.
Exactly.
And so you're just asking the bank to basically work with you just at a different rate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We want to pay. It's not that we wanted to stop
Exactly.
paying. We want our payments to reflect current market values, for example, and we want a little break from the bank.
Exactly.
After they got bailed out.
Okay, well that makes sense. I'm going to go to you, Mr. Attorney Ernesto Burgess. I'm sure you hear stories like this a lot. What happens when it's reached the foreclosure stage of things? What can people do?
Well, there are a lot of things that people can do. In my office, we have 6 attorneys, and a couple of attorneys deal specifically with foreclosure defense. Oftentimes, and if you go to court, you'll see the judge has a stack of complaints for foreclosure and sale, and the judge will I don't want to say yell out, but he'll say, "Is there anyone here regarding property located at such and such address?" And most of the time, there's no one there to respond. and a default judgment is entered against that homeowner. A lot of homeowners don't file an appearance, they don't file an answer, they don't file any affirmative defenses or counterclaims or anything. They simply think, well, there's nothing I can do, and they don't show up. And that happens much too often. But certainly in our office, we make sure that an appearance is filed so a default is not entered against that homeowner. We do a forensic audit if we're retained. Certainly we do a forensic audit over the regarding the closing documents to see if there have been any types of violations, TILA violations or RESPA violations or any other types of defenses that we might have. Sometimes we do. Sometimes service is not proper. So there are a number of things that we do to fight those foreclosures. In addition, we recommend people, we work with, I've sent many people to NHS. There are other organizations that will help a homeowner free of charge of doing a loan modification. Sometimes in doing a loan mod, I think it helps if you're fighting them in court, because I can't tell you how many people say, I've been trying to get a loan mod, and they told me they were working with me, and the next thing you know, they receive their complaint for foreclosure. They ignore it because they think that they're still going to get their loan mod. The next thing they know, there's a sale about to occur. And they're thinking they've worked it out because they've talked to Joe or Susie in the loan mod department. So people have to understand that there are two tracks. There's that lender has a loan mod department. They've also got a foreclosure department, and that foreclosure department's not stopping typically. Sometimes it happens, but people need to understand they need to respond to the complaint that they receive, regardless of your loan mod.
Okay, can they respond by themselves, or should they seek legal counsel?
I would advise that they seek legal counsel, but because oftentimes there's someone in the courthouse that will help you fill out an appearance form. And but when that complaint is made, you have to answer it paragraph by paragraph. And if you say, I admit, it's like saying, Your Honor, I'm guilty on all charges. And
okay. Well, it's interesting you say you need to seek legal counsel, because I'll just take Mr. Ortiz, for example. He's exhausted himself financially, so he doesn't have the money to seek legal counsel at this point. Is that about fair?
Yes, that's true.
I mean, you could probably come up with it, but then you'd be further in debt.
Well, I want
the thing is, he's not paying a mortgage right now. Are you?
We're not paying.
You're not making any mortgage payments because you're in foreclosure and they won't accept any payments from you.
That's correct.
Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So you do have some money to pay an attorney if you need one. Or seek other
Okay.
With all due respect, I've been in eviction court a few times in the last few weeks, and what I'm seeing is an overflowing assembly line of cases with people, even with attorneys. You know, eviction is also hurting people in public housing as well. The city is tearing down all these public housing buildings, and these people can't afford legal representation too. I wouldn't assume people do have money. So that's why people at the anti-eviction campaign who don't necessarily have a great amount of faith in the court system or even the politicians are asking people to come out and organize in a campaign that says enough's enough. We've been betrayed by too many politicians, betrayed by too many court proceedings, to really want to put all of our energy into this system. Recently, we handed Tom Dart, the sheriff of Cook County, an eviction notice. It was a 6-foot-tall eviction notice. It says, if you don't put a moratorium on all economically based foreclosures, we are going to come back in 5 days and